reflect on what happened a year ago, and the Nigerian government still continues to fight it. Why do we have police presence at the toll gate? These, are just really, really red flags left and right, concerning this. But we'll follow up and, of course, continue to talk about these things. Stay with us when we come back. Nick Agule joins us with Off the Press this morning on The Breakfast.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there's regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuel.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Brethren, be strong in the Lord.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on PlusTvAfrica. Time for us to check out the big stories on our national dailies. And to make sense of all of this, we have Nick Agule, who is a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for joining us, Nick Agule.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right, so we'll start off with the Leadership newspaper this morning and find out what big stories are making the rounds on the Leadership newspaper. Now, looking at the front page of the Leadership newspaper, a very bold and interesting caption says, Abuja now home to abandoned white elephant projects. That's on page 4. This is not new to the Nigerian scene. If you look across the entire country, you find out that abandonment, it's a national shame, says resident. Okay, so that's what you find on the Leadership newspaper. Another header says, investors besiege all to sing. That's quite interesting, if you ask me, and that's on page 8 of the Leadership newspaper. I visited EFCC on my own volition. Kwankwaso is quoted on page 4. Well, these are the stories we can take on the Leadership newspaper this morning.
All right, moving on to the Punch newspapers. APC parallel congresses, Amosun, Aregbesola, Lai may lose out, party back to governors. It's a practice to respect incumbent governors. They are party leaders, National Caucus member says. Says illegal congresses won't be recognized, and that's from the APC, as mass defection looms. Also, presidency faults ONU and gulps 13.2 trillion naira in 4 years. Also on the Punch, Pandora Papers, EFCC opens probe of Obi, Odua, NPA boss, and others. Nigerian Air Force denies paying 20 million naira to save Buhari's plane from bandits. And 750,000 metric tons supply gap Forex shoot cooking gas above 8,000 naira.
All right, let's check out the Daily Independent newspaper this morning. Nigeria unattractive to lenders, investors, analysts. Senate uncovers how Budget Office paid 28 billion naira to unnamed MDAs. That's on page 4. And Serap drags Buhari to court over plan to monitor WhatsApp messages. It's also on page 5. Still looking at the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning. 2022 budget. State House operation to gob over 200 billion naira in duplicated line items. Federal government to spend 21.97 billion naira on VP wing of State House clinic. Interesting. APC crisis ridden congresses explain why Nigeria is in crisis. That's what you find on page 5, and you have the PDP on that. And PDP PDP convention, Secondus vows to seek justice over his sack. That's on page 5. Federal government earmarks 20 billion naira for construction of Abuja Airport second runway. And you also find State Congress, Sanwo-Olu's loyalists worry over rumored single-term plot. That's also another interesting headline on page 4 of the Daily Independent newspaper.
Now let's see what we can find on The Nation. Big one there says, Secondus Anyanwu deep in PDP, the Akere Doluto probe Congress. No other Congress outside the Shogbo Stadium. Also why your APC Congress collapsed and others. We can also find on The Nation this morning, Anambra 2021. Rule out postponement of polls, says INEC. APC to hold rally November 3rd. And Kogi government to EFCC disclosed custodian of missing cash. Minister, railway paying back loans. It says government targets 6,000 kilometers lines. And also Nigerian concerning the Wall Street Journal's report that says the Nigerian government paid 20 million naira to bandits, about $50,000, to protect the president's plane, basically, from bandits. Quickly share your thoughts on that one before we go on.
My view on that story is that the story sounds quite unlikely or unusual for an Air Force to do that. But in Nigeria, you never say never to anything. I mean, anything is possible. So I am not privy to whatever would have happened between the Air Force and bandits in terms of any ransom that was demanded and paid to protect the president's plane. But in my mind, I believe that even if the Air Force paid bandits some money to protect the president's plane, some other measures must have been taken to protect the president's plane, because you are dealing with bandits, and these are irrational human beings who may not even comply with agreements. So if you put the president's plane in the pathway or in harm's way where the bandits are able to strike it, because you paid them 20 billion, I would say that would be a very risky thing to do. Very risky thing to do. So even if this story was true, I would say the Air Force must have taken steps to protect the president's plane, probably giving it a different flight path or ensuring that the airspace on the flight path of the president's plane is fully secured before they will let the president go by that route.
Okay, let's even assume that that story is even true. I mean, let's go by the fact that if that story is true, what is the guarantee that this bandit will not, use the money to purchase another one, more sophisticated, to rather own it? I mean, if you're talking about 20 million naira at this point in time. You want to ask what the value of that anti-aircraft's gun is. So what's the guarantee that they will not go back to get, a better one and then come back, to execute their intentions?
Precisely. Like you have said, if we assume that the story is true, you pay money to the bandits and they always remain bandits. So there is no guarantee that they won't use this money to go and buy more arms or even acquire more sophisticated anti-aircraft weapons. So that is one of the tragedies of negotiating with bandits and giving them money while they still remain bandits. If you are negotiating an amnesty deal with criminals, you ensure that they won't be able to go back to their criminality. Because if they are able to go to government, knowing that bandits have the capability to shoot at and possibly bring down the president's plane, to put that plane in that flight path, even if ransom is paid. Because you can never tell what they're going to do. They are bandits, they are like animals. There are people who you have a dog, and the next day the dog is biting you. That is the way bandits operate. And I don't think they should be trusted to that point that after ransom is being paid, then they should even, not only the president's plane, put any plane at all in that flight path without first securing the ground all along that flight path.
Well, Mr. Agule, I'm sure you would also remember not long ago the same bandits were alleged to have shot down a Nigerian Air Force jet. So hopefully we get to see some clarity from the story in the next couple of days and understand better if this is true or false. But let's move away from there and talk about the APC congresses. It's reported that in many states across the Federation there were parallel congresses.
Before I answer your question, let us say one last thing on the last story that we took, that I have read a report. I don't know if it's authentic, but I read a report purported to have been issued by the Nigerian Air Force. Almost all of them, where the party decides to do that, so long as it's in a democratic way, they have their right to do that. But my concern is the APC as a ruling party, and correctly, how can we trust them? Because there is a case, is it Ogun State? There are two congresses in Ogun State. I think either Ogun or Oyo State, one of the old states. They had two congresses. In one of the congresses, there were shootings, and people had to run helter-skelter. All the crises up and down in the parties, fighting for personal territory. So for us Nigerians, we would like to advise these party leaders. What we need, basic things. Let your fight be for the purpose of delivery of good governance. That is what will interest us, and that is what is going to be for the good of this country. If party leaders are united in terms of delivery of good governance to Nigerians, I don't expect this crisis to be happening and down in all the parties. So this is the time that these guys should sheath their swords, should all think that we're working.
The news, you have resources have been released, like millions have been released, and these contractors are not doing the needful. So what could be responsible for this behavior?
Something that is very important that needs to be addressed by the government without any further delay. When I'm in Nigeria, as I'm speaking to you now, I spent 3 stages up and do something about this. through good governance to Nigerians. There is no must read the Riot Act to the contractors who have taken money and have failed to deliver the housing project, so that when judgment is passed against them, the government can actually go after them, including the assets in the corporate entities that they are running in this country, so that we will try and finish this project for use. For the properties that are owned by the private sector, be they corporate bodies or human beings, the government equally needs to read a Riot Act to them. In fact, this is a situation where President Buhari himself, or through any of his ministers, can give a deadline to these people and say, look, you have this deadline. You either come and start work to complete these properties, or the government is taking over, so that we can complete these properties and use them for public good. Some of these properties can be used as offices, they can be used as hospitals, they can be used as schools, they can be used for the public good. So read the Riot Act to them, say that in so and so time, if you don't come and complete these properties, we are taking them over for the public good. I believe that this is the decisive action that government must take to stop this menace of seeing properties unoccupied. Incidentally, some of them are actually finished. Some of the properties I see in Abuja are finished but unoccupied. You know, like those who know Abuja well, if you are approaching Abuja from the airport, you have these two skyscrapers. They are the tallest buildings in Abuja. I think they are either on Independence or Constitution Avenue. As you come from the stadium and you are approaching the city of Abuja, the tallest skyscrapers in Abuja, two of them, I have been seeing them in that completed state now for more than 5 years. Those are the kind of properties that government will read Riot Act, and if the people, the owners don't come and finish them up and let them out for use, the government takes them over and turns them into either housing or any other public use. The numbers look dodgy. You see, when we hear these numbers fail empirical test. How do I mean? In the federal civil service, people are retiring every day, because even today, it will be the 60th birthday of a federal civil servant, or the 35th anniversary of those who were on the wage list. And at the end of the day, there is no transparency in the administration of this budget. Like our Commonwealth is filtered away. So those numbers are dodgy, and I will expect the National Assembly to do a thorough job of scrutinizing those numbers. They have to see evidence. They need to see breakdown, even down, to understand why the wage bill from the previous...
Thoughts on the issues for the show this morning.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I sell my sugar.
Suffered equally confessed.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to courageously be the voice of transformation, as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
welcome once again. Was an American boxer who, in this time, in 1912, and in that era, the Jim Crow era, as it was popularly called, was the first act against transporting women against state lines for immoral purposes. Apparently, his wife, Lucille Cameron, was to, sometimes a year and a day, sometimes a little bit more than a year in prison for, the same act. He eventually, of course, continued fighting for money and, of course, opened other businesses and, continued, to run his business while, of course, still boxing. He later was pardoned by former U.S. President Donald Trump. But on this day, he became a person who was arrested for violating that Mann Act simply because his wife, who was a white woman, was an alleged sex worker. And it was against what was called the Mann Act at that time in 1912 to 1913. That's what we have for you in history today. Now, let's get into our first major conversation on the program this morning. We're talking security and a story that has broken headlines across Nigeria in the last 24 hours. The allegations by the Wall Street Journal that the Nigerian government paid bandits in Katsina State $50,000 in order to buy back an anti-aircraft weapon that was taken from Nigeria's fighting soldiers. It's said that the weapon needed to be bought back so that the president's plane would be safe if he decided to fly over Katsina. This morning we're speaking with the National Publicity Secretary of the Youth Party, Mr. Ayodele Adio. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
We also have with us Yahuza Getso, who's an anti-terrorism and intelligence expert. Morning, Mr. Getso. Great to see you this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
I want us to start with the, anti-terrorism and intelligence expert. I want you to share your thoughts on the story, first of all. The Nigerian Air Force, of course, has put out a statement saying that it is a complete hoax. And
Nigerian government under Buhari's watch, as well as the politicians of PDP, APC, ABGA, whatever you have, that is their trend. It has been their attitude. And going by what has been happening in the last 6 years, 5 to 6 years or 7 years, one can easily accept that. Because Nigerian security and Nigerian intelligence have been compromised in many situations and in many circumstances. In the case of the issues related to kidnapping, relationship between the bandits commanders and the governments of the states. And there is also very close in making a presentation, a public presentation, that they have received some of the repentant bandits. So, but we have not had any actionable made Sokoto and some of the leadership of the governors, leadership part of the Katsina state government, as well as the Niger state government, that they have been saying that they are in touch. It happens to many who were apprehended or were kidnapped in many parts of Katsina, many parts of Niger, many parts of Kaduna, many parts of Zamfara, Sokoto, and others and alike. And there is also very clear testimony and allegation from Isa local government around Sabonbini, between Isa Sabonbini and Zurmi, which is one of the notorious hideout of the criminals, that the Commissioner for Security Affairs of Sokoto State was kind of allegation was raised against him by his indigenous community, that is Isa, where he came from, which led to destruction and burning of his house. And yet, we didn't get any feedback from the government. And we saw the district head standing before the community at the Friday mosque, swearing in with the Quran that he doesn't have any hands, and if he has whatever, this and that. So it is very, very difficult. And we have many iota of evidences, many reasons and many evidences that these governments in these states, they have either direct, if not directly, indirect relationship with these criminals. If they don't have, how are they accessing? How are they working to contact these criminals when they kidnap someone? Recently, just about in 24 hours or more than that, the emir of Bungudu regained his freedom. So how does that happen? I I wonder who are really the contacts between the criminals in the forest and the government. Because we have not seen any bloodshed. We have not seen those who it was meant for them. So, which means actually there are questions. And I have made as an assertion in many national and international media that these guys really in Kaduna, in Katsina, in part of Niger, and in part of Zamfara, they own the A, that is anti-aircraft. This has been long. This is not the first time. This is the first time the Air Force are responding to it. But I have been saying that, I have been confirming and reaffirming that these guys have owned anti-aircraft missiles, and government did nothing. So I really find it very, very difficult how they get access to these arms. And if at all government have been saying that we know them, we know their finances, we know where they are. So what are you doing that you are chasing shadow? Putting off the network is not a solution. You are chasing shadow. Closing markets is chasing shadow. You know their locations. You know who they are. You have their contact. If they kidnap someone, you know how to contact them and get the person released. So why can't you deal with them and finish the matter rather than wasting everybody's time and deceiving everybody in the country?
Okay, so I'd also like to ask, let's stay with the issue of the ransom. Although we have, government and over the time saying, oh, we're not paying ransom. Ransom is not being paid. But in this particular case, if the story is anything to go by, do you think that, the option of paying ransom is the best?
There may be some certain tactical strategy that can be used as a schematic strategy towards attending or understanding some of the complexities of the forest, which is one of the challenges of the Nigerian security operatives. However, I believe sincerely that the money shouldn't be the best way of addressing the issue. Because if you know, for example, one of the suspects, that is Dankalemi or Halilu or Turji, that is some of these are the key. If you know, we know their locations, or pay ransom to the bandits.
All right.
Either by kidnapping or either by releasing arms. I'm not in support of that.
All right. Let's bring in the National Publicity Secretary of the Youth Party, Ayodele Adio. Good morning once again. And let's also get your thoughts on this one. Of course, the Nigerian government has put out a statement saying that this is a hoax and, it's a fake story by the Wall Street Journal. So let me get your thoughts. Do you agree with the Nigerian government that, how can they pay for a weapon or to buy a weapon back from people that they have been fighting and defeating?
Well, I think it's a very straight one. But like Alhaji Getso just said, if we're going to go by antecedent and see which of the parties, has denied or has lied about certain security situations in the last 6 years, it will be the Nigerian government. What has happened, what we cannot deny is that our forests, particularly in Zamfara, Katsina, Birnin-Gwari, somewhere in Kaduna State, are controlled exclusively by these bandits. Right? The entire Rugu forest stretch is controlled exclusively by these individuals. In fact, they control tens and tens of communities across the northwestern part of the country and in many places in the north central part of the country. So many communities are now under the control of the bandits in Niger State, which wasn't the case some 6-7 years ago. So what you cannot deny is the fact that bandits or terrorists in the northwestern part of the country are increasingly growing their capabilities to lay siege on the Nigerian state. What you also cannot deny is the lack of capacity or the dwindling capacity of the Nigerian state to effectively respond to these acts of terrorism by these bandits or so-called terrorist groups, the northwestern part of the country. And just like Ahmed Getso just said, it's clear that they know where these bandits are. But the problem is the lack of capacity to effectively flush these bandits out of their area. And again, Just 2 weeks ago, a senior naval officer spoke before the National Assembly and talked about the proliferation of arms coming in from Niger and Chad, largely from Chadian soldiers who are selling these arms for $20 or $30. And most of these arms are flowing in all the way from Libya down to Chad. And these soldiers are selling these arms and they easily find their ways across the border. And her statement was quite clear and emphatic that as long as that flow continues to happen from Libya to Chad and from the Chadian borders and the Nigerian borders into Nigeria, we will never be able to deal with insecurity in our country. So the Nigerian government is failing clearly or spectacularly in two ways. One, our inability to deal with the inflow and the proliferation of light arms, and of course, in this case, sophisticated weapons from our borders in Chad and Niger into Nigeria. And of course, our internal capacity to respond to crime is a serious problem that the Nigerian state is grappling with. We can try, they can spin it whichever way that they want to. But one thing that is difficult to spin is the lack of state capacity to deal and respond effectively to these crimes. Now, many people forget that in many of these communities that these atrocities happen, people have lived in these communities for hundreds of years. Even places like Rugu, you have people who have lived in Rugu for hundreds of years. Now, what suddenly changed overnight is the consequence of bad governance over the years. And I hear every time the excuses that the government makes, that the terrain is difficult, to access some of these villages is difficult. Excuse me, whose job is it to provide infrastructure in many of these communities to allow access into those communities a lot easier? It's the government that is supposed to do that. And then they turn around again to tell you that access to these places are difficult, abandoning the people in those communities in the hands of bandits and terrorists, who kill them every day, who stop them from going to farms, who rape their women, who plunge them into penury. So again, the state has to increase its capacity to respond to these acts of terrorism. Otherwise, it's a waste. It's increasing by the day. That's the issue.
Mr. Adio, sorry, Mr. Adio, two things that I did in 2014 and seeing how far we've come 6 years later. It still doesn't feel like any Nigerian that we still are having these conversations today.
I'll tell you most sincerely that I am disappointed as a person. And of course, as a political party, we are extremely disappointed because for anything, we believed that the experience of Mr. President being in the military and even rising to the rank of a general would have played a critical role in managing insecurity in our country. Unfortunately, that has not been the case, and I explained to you why that hasn't been the case. And I'll explain to you why that hasn't been the case, and it's because we have not set our priorities straight. Now, what we have done in the Youth Party, for instance, is to publish a document called the Police Reforms, which was supposed to boost internal security in our country. And what did that paper essentially do? Because we have viewed this problem broadly and fingered the problem right at the failure of internal security. There's a complete breakdown of internal security in our country. And the police is supposed to be responsible for providing this internal security in our country. Now, what we have done, not just in the last 6 years, in fact, in the last 10 years, is to bring in the military who are supposed to be fighting against external aggression to maintain internal security in our country. And that cannot work. And in many communities, if I'm sure you've had numerous reports of killings in many communities in Katsina, in Zamfara, in Kaduna, in Niger. Many of these killings happen in communities, in rural communities across the northwestern part of the country where there is no police presence or inadequate police presence to protect the people in those communities. There are so many people who will rather, and as I speak to you, who will rather pay a fine to these bandits to access their farms than to put their hopes in the state to protect them via the police. So what are we saying? We're saying that we need to increase the capacity of the police to respond to internal security threats. And to do that, we need to invest in the training of the Nigerian police force to boost their skills and their competencies to be able to respond to crime in the 21st century. That will entail improving their forensic lab. That will entail, of course, improving their remuneration. That would entail an entire restructuring of the Nigerian police, as we rightly pointed in the document, so that state governors can have the powers to empower community policing in many of these communities that lack the presence of the Nigerian police. We need strong community policies who are well equipped, who are well funded, who are well remunerated, who are well trained to be able to respond to local crimes in these communities. If we don't do that, if we keep on expecting the Nigerian military to be deployed from wherever they are deployed, to go and deal with a problem in Rugu, to go and deal with a problem in Zamfara, to go and deal with a problem in Niger, we'll simply be blinking in the dark. And Ahmed Getso made a very, very important point, that the geography of many of these places in northwestern Nigeria, the geography where many of these bandits are operating, is difficult for the Nigerian army. Many of them do not understand the geography in the places where they are going to fight. But if you have trained a local police force who are groomed in that particular community, who understand the geography in the places they are supposed to respond to those crimes, you will see better crime prevention and better responses to some of these criminalities that we see in this community. At the moment, it doesn't look to me like there's a clear strategy to deal with insecurity, which is why we also have proposed that there needs to be a National Security Commission that draws intelligence from every state of the Federation, and not just from security agents or former security personnel, but from geographers, from social scientists, and from economists, because the problem is not just boots on ground, it's about a socio-economic condition.
How are they getting these weapons? I mean, how do we get such sensitive weapons, such weapons in their hands? Now, in this particular case, although, you have the Nigerian Air Force refuting that, saying that's not true.
Well, there are let me, before I go into that, let me make a little rider to Ayodele. The issue is the question is, do we even have the police? Do we even have the military? As far as I'm concerned, what we have is errands. That's the question. They don't have passion, they don't have patriotism, they don't have compassion, they don't have interest of their job. What we have in the last 22 to 35 years is recruitment of errands, not names. And those names are the people, as far as I'm concerned, as a professional forest criminality therapist, and as an expert on criminals' behavior, and based on facts and evidence, these arms are coming a connivance where a policeman or a military was found guilty of conniving with these criminals in selling arms. The issue is, have you ever had in the last 6 years or so anybody that had been punished in the public to serve as a deterrence? Was there any feedback from the police, from the military, from the DSS after apprehension of anybody, any criminals found wanting in possession of RPG, PMG, AK-47, AK-49, and also yes, of course, as I have been saying, the arm importers, the arm traders are foreigners, which are less than 1%, while the criminals are 99% indigenous. But the arm movers and arm transporters are Nigerians. So these arms, yes, of course, they may be coming through some illegal, there may be some proportion or percentage that is coming through an illegal means. But as far as I'm concerned, if we really have a government, if we really have a serious government, if we really have a serious state, if we really have a sovereign state, if we really have a military and intelligence system, a police, an intelligence system of police, a DSS, an intelligence system of DSS from the agents that are reporting and providing feedback to the president. That is one of the reasons. Secondly, the president is so adamant that he doesn't care. What he cares is to provide approval for money to be spent on security. But whether people are being secured or result is being getting or not, nothing is happening. Armed proliferation is on the rise. I want to tell you, and I have been warning the state, not only the state of Zamfara, but the nation, they are getting intelligence on how these arms are being proliferated. There are common ways, there are difficult ways, there are simple ways, there are four, as far as this supply chain mechanism can have not been destroyed. That is, arm importers, they have their own syndicate. Arm traders, they have their own syndicate. Arm transporters, they have their own syndicate. Armed movers, they have their own syndicate. And this has been the reason why arms are being proliferated, and these arms are not coming through any forest border. Yes, of course, some little are coming through the forest border, but it's not that we don't have the capacity, but we don't have the willingness. There is no political will. There is no administrative will. There is no, what you have, as far as I'm concerned, is that why can't you mobilize have what she is having as her rank? Because as far as I'm concerned, if she really have that rank, I expected her to be more leading criminality. We are not eliminating criminality. Right. We are not working towards addressing the issues of criminality. And we are also opening more ways of improving the capacity of the criminals, in the capacity of the armed bandits, the capacity of the armed traders, the capacity of the armed movers, the capacity of the armed importers, and also we are also breeding the future criminality that Nigeria may not be able to manage.
All right, Mr. Yahosegetso, I'm going to come back to you with regards the security and, of course, on-ground assessment on some of these things. I want us to bring back Ayodele Adio. If you've been listening, of course, some of the things that have been described by Mr. Getso are really scary and frightening, seeing, what is likely to occur in the near future. Mr. Adio, what would you say Nigeria needs? Because we have, about a year plus to the next elections. I'm not sure how this will play out or how Nigeria would survive security-wise before the next elections. But what would you say must be done if we're serious as a country to help the country heal from this insecurity challenge?
I think we need a complete overhaul of our internal security architecture.
Well, Mr. Adio, I understand that. But we are all Nigerians, and I want you to, share.
Shamik, which is the problem? We can't keep saying that we know what we need, and none of it is likely to happen. And you're saying it's not likely to happen because of the kind of politicians that you have in power. Because the real problem is the lack of political will to implement some of these provisions that will make our country a lot more secure, that will stop the bloodshed, that will stop the impunity, that will stop the endless killings and murder and arson across our country. Is the lack of political will. And that is why we keep on saying that elections have consequences. And rather than sell your vote, for a pot of soup or for a loaf of bread, you must begin to ask more critical questions about the kind of politicians that we elect at every single level, from local government to state government, and of course up down to the presidency, because elections do have consequences. And I like that you put your hand right on the button, where you said that there is a lack of political will to implement some of these ideas that are quite simple on the surface. Why is it that today our training colleges of police are still in a very dilapidated state? Why is it that as of today, police officers are still living in penury? We transfer them from one state to the other, and we don't make any adequate provisions for them to survive. Why is it that at this very state in our country, the entry level, the screening level of police officers or soldiers is such that a politician can put a shirt on 20 people in his community and off he goes into the police academy? So these are very simplistic and basic things that someone with a political will can ensure that there is quality control across board, to ensure that the people who are recruiting into the police force are people of competence, of character, and people that are willing to upskill. We also should ensure that once they get into the police, they are provided with the right skills, the right equipment, and the right environment to apply the skills that they have acquired over time. We also should ensure that we remunerate them accordingly so that they don't have to stay on street corners to use their guns to threaten average Nigerians and in fact rob average Nigerians of their hard-earned monies because they want an excuse to survive. Now, all of these things will not happen if we continue to elect the very same politicians that have put us in this mess altogether. Because the police problem did not start today. It's been over 20 years coming, when we have vulgarized the entire institution and have plunged it into what, my good friend calls an errant institution as we speak today, because there has not been any adequate attention paid to the development of this sector over the years. And we keep electing these same kinds of politicians who make vague promises, who come into power and are arrogant about the fact that people are dying on their watch every day and they don't seem to care. That's the most hurtful part of it. They don't seem to care that thousands of people are dying under their watch every single month, and they seem not to be able to find the political will to put the necessary things in place to ensure change comes. And that's why we're crying that young people across the country, particularly in these communities where they have buried their mothers, where they have buried their sisters, where they have buried their fathers, where they cannot go to farm, should go and register to vote, to ensure that their vote counts, and to vote out these politicians who have brought nothing but bloodshed to them and their communities, and to vote political parties in, not because they are dominant or not, but because they have a clear plan to secure the country, to create wealth for the Nigerian citizens, and to move our country forward. Enough of this kind of politicking, where we think in election cycles. Just like the speaker said, we're deploying thousands of policemen to go and protect ballot boxes in Anambra State when people are dying in Katsina and in Zamfara every single day. We're deploying thousands of soldiers to protect oil installations in the Niger Delta when people are dying every single day. We have deployed police officers to protect VIPs in our country when there are so many communities without police presence in our country. When will this madness stop? The primary purpose of governance is the security and the welfare of the average Nigerian. And they have jettisoned this. And we continue to excuse their incompetence. We continue to excuse their lack of patriotism because they are from some dominant political party or what? Let's wake up and smell the coffee. This country is our own and it is sinking. If we don't act quick, our country will be overrun by bandits and terrorists and will be paying homage to warlords across our country.
They don't have the capacity, they don't have enough personnel, they don't have the equipment, to go ahead, because from all that is going on, it feels like we know.
And all communities in the 19 northern states with a particular attention to the areas of where this thing is happening, even though I have been to almost to all parts of West African states. All the forests, I know what it is like. If you switch off a light in my room, and when I'm looking for a needle, I know where to find it. That's how I have a knowledge and understanding of the West African forest. In caps, in capital letter, and in bold and italic, let everybody know. And quote me everywhere that I say that the states have a cordial relationship with bandits in the forest within their domain. I need to state some of the reasons that I can say it in public. There are some reasons. The investigator, I go to the forest, I go to the security agencies, I go everywhere because I am conducting a field-based research. Now that I'm talking to you, I have been in the field in almost 30 days. I have not been with my family. I have been moving around the states of the Northeast and the Northwest. So as far as I'm concerned, the reasons I want to state is, how do governments have contact to get the children of Jengebe From the statement we read, that police and the family work as a team together with the two government Emir Bungudu free. How do they get the children of Kagara? How do they get the children of Kagara, Tegina, Kankara, Jengebe, and other places?
Mr. Getso,
so it means it is very clear that there is undermined relationship. There is a very clear relationship. Governor Masari and other Governor Mutawalli and others, they have been proclaiming.
All right.
Even though it's not yet proclaiming because we have evidence
that
they have gone and conducted dialogue with these guys. The dialogue I have been disputing. That any governor that says that he conducted a dialogue with any criminals. I, Dr. Huza Geso, I said, it's a typical lie. It has no basis. If you conducted any dialogue, I have 5 degrees and 4 diplomas. I am ready to take back my certificate, back to the institutions that have awarded me this certificate. If you have any evidence to show the public, print it in tomorrow's Tuesday, in tomorrow's daily newspapers. Print your evidence, and I will submit all my certificates back to the institutions. They have given me 5 degrees and 4 diplomas. So as far as I'm concerned, it is not a dialogue. We have seen Governor Masari moving around the forest with loudspeaker, the commanding officer, the commanding officer of the military, the police commissioner, and the director of DSS. They will just move around the forest and say, where is the ward head? Where is the village head? Please come. We know that you have criminals here. Please call them, call them. So they come. They had a discussion. That is not a dialogue. What you call it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if we still have you, but in the interest of time, we would have to wrap up here. Mr. Getso, we would have to wrap up the conversation here this morning. It's obviously something that can go on for days and days, without ending. And these are very, very important conversations. Sadly, of course, we're out of time. So thank you very much, Yahoza Getso, for joining us this morning. Ayodele Adio, National Publicity Secretary of the Youth Party. Thank you also. I truly enjoyed speaking with you both this morning. Looking forward to another one.
All right, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Stay with us. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're moving from security now to politics. The APC's congresses across different states came with reports of violence and, issues, in all the states. We'll be talking about that after this break. Stay with us.
In each state in the next 12 months.
When I start hearing the shoot of guns.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is a man's precious possession. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare. Sundays, 7 p.m. on PlusTvAfrica.
In the state, the report is that all of these congresses were meted with parallel. I mean, you have the fact that there was no possibility that there will be a convention in December or any time before December. To make sense of all of this, we do have a guest in the studio this morning with us. Not in the studio, he will be joining us virtually, and his name is Mark Adeboye. Good morning, Mr. Mark. Thank you for congresses. That's what the report and the news is saying. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I think the relevance of this discourse is just to the extent that it affects our democracy as a country. So that is why it is relevant as a point of discussion among Nigerians. Otherwise, we just have left it at the level of internal party intrigues and, us trading. But the point to make is that it is discouraging that a ruling party can be having this kind of issues, that they are unable to put their house in order, they are unable to manage their differences, they are unable to manage their crisis. And this is the party to which the management of the crisis of Nigeria has been entrusted. And that is why all Nigerians must be concerned about the way they are managing the congresses. One of the things I've discovered over the years is that parties in power tend to behave with impunity. They really don't care. They wanted power, they got the power, and whatever happens thereafter doesn't really count for much to them. So the crisis we witnessed in the last APC congresses quite avoidable, but they have decided to just watch their dirty lining in public. You could see, look at it, for instance, in Edo State, where journalists were barred from even monitoring, from observing the Congress. So if you have nothing to hide, why would you say the media should not come in? It is a sign of the kind of hostage democracy that we are operating in the country. We shouldn't be talking about these 20-something, over 2 decades after we returned to civil rule due to the outcome of the congresses and the rest of that. But I do believe that some people will still have to approach the courts to seek for justice. Look at the violence in the Akwa Ibom State, where the youths, fearing imposition of a chairman upon them, went and burned down the secretariat of the party. That doesn't speak well for a ruling party. It doesn't speak well at all. It doesn't speak well for our democracy. Those are my concerns. And I think, let me quickly make this point. This cannot conduct their affairs with the discipline and the decency that a democracy requires. So, and you see that some of these, they call them fringe political parties, have better internal mechanisms, have better internal democracy mechanisms than these behemoths of political parties. Just because they have the resources, they have the government at their hands, doesn't make them better political parties. It doesn't make them a better run political party. And that is what we are witnessing now.
Right, Mr. Adebayo.
I'm not a member of the APC, but I think they should lead by example. And so that it will be helpful and healthy for our democracy.
All right, Mr. Adebayo, I want you to also share your thoughts on, it was on the Punch this morning saying that Amosun Aregbesola Lai may lose out, party back to governors. So I want you to share your views on the interference or seeming interference of, what they've called incumbent, powers, and that's from the governors. And of course, with also some certain ministers in the current administration also, Lai Mohammed and Aregbesola have been mentioned. The interference of these persons in something that should really just be a very easy process in selecting parties' leadership. What are your thoughts on that?
You see, Osage, the thing is that for both the incumbent and the former governors, whether you are a sitting governor or you are a former governor, attempting or interfering in the electoral processes of a Congress, it is anti-democratic. And what we have discovered is that sitting governors are the lords of the manor in all the political parties. What they do is that they want to dictate the delegates, they want to dictate the outcome of unnecessary violence. It doesn't speak well for our democracy. And I think it is retrogressing our democracy. We should not allow that. I think That is where party supremacy must come in, of the party, and organize the congresses. I think we should remove the interference of people in governance from direct party politics. Let the government go in there, former and president go in there as delegates and vote and get out. Let them not have any roles to play in who becomes what. That is where we are going to have we are going to begin to have healthy congresses. But a situation whereby that is why you are seeing power to control everything and all the outcomes of the congresses. The former governor believing that, look, I still have my structures and my people must benefit. I must continue to control the party, even though I'm no longer in office. Now clashes are inevitable, and when that comes, it is the grass that suffers the contention between two elephants. It is common delegates, the common voters, the people who just went there to vote and go that will suffer the brunt of the sum. So we should not allow that. I think we should remove the hands of governors, incumbent governors, former governors from the processes of party politics and congresses. Let them just be delegates, go and vote and also get out, not to predetermine what is going to happen at congresses. Look at what happened in Lagos State, for instance. The result of the Congress that was not yet aired was already out in the public by Friday morning. By Friday, by Friday, some 48 hours or so before the Congresses began, results are flying out all over the place. It is not healthy for our democracy.
Mr. Adebayo, in 30 seconds, so we can wrap up, can you share with us, if this also reduces the hope that you have in the 2023 general elections and the capacity of the current administration and current ruling political party to carry out free and fair and violence-free elections in 2023?
Now, if they are behaving this way among themselves, what will happen when it comes to other political parties, the opposition? It's going to be extremely violent, and we should not allow that. We should not encourage that. One would have thought that, like I'm saying, a ruling party should lead by example. So what are they contending for? What was the issue? Why couldn't they, have settled all these things before going to the Congress? And we must know something. There is an albatross hanging on the neck of APC now that they are not looking directly at, because the outcome of these congresses might just be a nullity at the end of the day. If some people now. Because, you can see even within the party, some people believe that the Governor Buni extraordinary committee is illegal, is unconstitutional. And that could render, including the National Convention, it could render everything just a nullity. And I think they should look in what, I'm not a member of the APC, but I'm just concerned for I'm concerned for my country, I'm concerned for our democracy. 2023 is heavily loaded, it's going to be the most sensitive
time. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation, Mr. Mike Adebayo. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mark Adebayo, thank you very much.
She will get used to me. And, thank you. She just came to the family and...
yes, absolutely.
When you are introducing yourself to one another, it could save some time. But she did not mention her name. That is another thing.
Well, I did. But my name is Mercy Boko. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation.
Okay, thank you so much, Mercy.
All right, sir.
Well, that's how much we can take at this point in time. Definitely catch up the conversation on all of our social media platforms, on Facebook and Instagram is at PlusTvAfrica, and on YouTube as well. I am Mercy Iboko.
And I am Osaugie Ogbon.
Politics has helped shape the decision of the polity, from conspiracy theories to good old-fashioned comic politics.
These are the result of tomorrow's election. Okay, you have it already, Abi.
I am not hungry. If I need appointment, all I need to do is to start praising government.
Plus, politics will fill the polls of the country, from friends to frenemies, even strange bedfellows, to clones and stooges. We go beyond the rhetorics and the drama to analyze the story behind the story.
Let
Somebody come and say.
The moment we stop having charlatans occupy political offices, we will curtail hate speech.
Plus Politics, not just another political show. It's about putting you, the citizens, in the know.
World Day Against Child Labour, held annually on June 12, is an international day to raise awareness and prompt action to stop child labour in all its forms. The International Labour Organization launched the first World Day Against Child Labour in 2002 as a way to highlight the plight of these children. The day is intended to serve as a catalyst for the growing worldwide movement against child labour and provide an opportunity to gain support from governments, civil society, schools, youth and women's groups, as well as the media in the campaign against child labour. Child labour is the employment of children in any work that deprives children of their childhood, interferes with their ability to attend regular school, and that is mentally, physically, socially or morally dangerous and harmful. Therefore, the day seeks to alert the public types of child labour. Child labour is rampant in many developing countries. Even in industrialized nations, many children are forced to work. According to figures available on the United Nations website, approximately 152 million children have been pushed into child labour. Out of the 152 million, around 72 million are involved in hazardous work. The data also reveals that around 48% victims of child labour are aged between 5 to 11 years old, 28% are aged between 12 to 14 years old, and the remaining 24% fall in the 15 to 17 years bracket. This year's World Day Against Child Labour focuses on action taken for the 2021 International Year for the Elimination of Child Labour, and will also focus on efforts to drive progress during the International Year, with a week of action raising the voices of International Labour Organization constituents and the many partners engaged in the struggle against child labour in all regions of the world.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on PlusTvAfrica, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@plustvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Thanks for joining us on Plus News Brief. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa. Gunmen have abducted 2 students of the Federal University, Lafia, in Nasarawa State. The abductors were Command's anti-kidnapping unit has been dispatched to commence a thorough search for the victims. And the kidnapped twin daughters of the Owa Lobo of Obo Ayegunle in Ekiti local government area of Kwara State have been rescued. They were rescued alongside 3 workers of the monarch. According to the statement by the police, all 5 of them were rescued unhurt. The kidnappers reportedly abandoned them after a hot chase by the police, local hunters, and vigilantes. Still talking security, the Emir of Bungudu in Zamfara State, Alhaji Hassan Atahiru, has regained his freedom after 32 days in captivity. The palace announced his release, which it attributed to the efforts of the Zamfara and Kaduna state governments. There was no information whether ransom was paid. The Emir is now in hospital in Kaduna for medical checkup, and the Emirate wants the public to respect his privacy in the coming weeks. And the Nigerian Air Force has denied a report by the Wall Street Journal that it paid 20 million naira as ransom to bandits in exchange for an anti-aircraft gun seized from the Nigerian Army. The Wall Street Journal had reported that that the Air Force made the payment to avoid criminals using the weapon to shoot down President Muhammadu Buhari's plane. The ransom was allegedly paid as the president was planning a trip to his home state in Katsina. In its denial, Air Force spokesman Air Commodore Edward Gapquet said there was no truth in the report. And the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project has filed a lawsuit against President Muhammadu Buhari, asking the courts to declare illegal and unconstitutional the plan by the administration to track, intercept, and monitor WhatsApp conversations, phone calls, and text messages of Nigerians and other people, as it severely threatens and violates the rights to the preservation of privacy. This would follow the proposal in the Supplementary Appropriation Act signed in July 2021 to spend 4.87 billion naira to monitor private calls and messages. The amount is part of the 895.8 billion naira supplementary budget approved by the National Assembly. In a suit filed last Friday at the Federal High Court in Abuja, Serap is seeking an order of perpetual injunction restraining President Buhari and any other authority, persons, or group of persons from unlawfully monitoring the WhatsApp messages, phone calls, and text messages of Nigerians and other people. And the Rivers State Congress of the All Progressive Congress is done and dusted, with Emeka Bekir emerging as the party chairman. The event took place at the Port Harcourt Polo Club and was attended by party faithful, led by the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Chibuike-Amechi. And here's the report.
Members of the All Progressives Congress gathered as early as 8 a.m. in Port Harcourt for the party's Congress in Rivers State. At the end of voting, Emeka Bekir got more than 1,500 votes to defeat other contestants. Chizie Nyomasila got 8 votes, while Japhet Obueri had no votes from a total of 1,615 accredited members of the APC in Rivers State. The former governor of Rivers State and the current Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, believes the party will take over the governance of Rivers State in 2023.
This gives APC the opportunity to prepare, because what happened was that some members of APC, using the other party and the state government, used the institution of judiciary to stop Nigerians from having a proper choice. This is an opportunity for us to have that choice now.
The newly elected state chairman, Emeka Bekir, said the party under his watch will strive to unite members and take over Brick House come 2023.
So I have 3 agendas. One, reconcile the party. Have a focus. When you're playing golf, they say your eyes on the ball. Make sure we put our members together who are aggrieved. The ultimate goal is for us to win election in Rivers State. But I can assure you today, today's victory is to take our ball in the government house, to take over government house of Rivers State.
The fact that we believe that it will be a vehicle for us to touch the lives of Rivers people. And so we are looking forward to 2023 so that we can offer good governance to the people of the state.
I want to say that we have come to teach how external programs is done. Yes, this election, I will not be under the illusion to think that we are perfect because we are human beings. But I think politicians may be there is sacrifice attached to it. I accept this election and congratulate my brother.
I want to show the whole world that we can do it and get it right. Today we will be here 6 early in the morning. The whole process has come and gone, and we accept the result as it is. We have decided to work with the chairman and the woman leader.
A chieftain of APC in the state, Golden Chioma, who had indicated interest and also campaigned to contest for the chairmanship, was nowhere close to the venue of the exercise.
And Paul Omotosho has retained his position as the Ekiti State Chairman of the APC. 35 other contestants were also elected unopposed as the party adopted a consensus method in choosing its state executives. The Congress was attended by Governor Kayode Fayemi and about 900 other delegates in Ado-Ekiti. The chairman of the Congress Committee, Yusuf Galambi, declared the exercise free, fair, and credible.
The way we conducted this Congress or election, I can say everybody have seen how we conducted it. And I am proud of what has happened, because all cooperation that we are expecting from the people of Ekiti State and the party members of APC, we have enjoyed it. And we thank God for the peaceful and successful Congress that we held.
We know that, yes, at least there are grievances already expressed by some people, and we'll get over all these things, because this is just one family, and you can just imagine, you cannot just say that there is a single member of our party that has decided or probably chosen to join another party. So that is still to say that, yes, at least within ourselves, we are going to resolve our matters.
Elected executive committee of our party have a job of work to do that we all have to assist them with. The Independent National Electoral, a level playing field for all interested people in this exercise.
So talking politics, the chairman of the Osun APC Congress Committee, Benga Elegbeleye, has dismissed reports of a parallel Congress in the state. The only Congress approved by the party, according to him, is the one conducted at the Oshogbo City Stadium.
It was 99% successful. So we just announced to you the results of the Congress of yesterday. We are on our way to the National Secretary to submit this report and the results. It was my committee that was inaugurated by the National ESCO to conduct primary or Congress for your state.
The Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, Senator George Akume, says it is almost certain that the All Progressive Congress, APC, will take over the Benue Government House in 2023. Akume said this when he spoke at the end of the APC State Congress in Makurdi on Sunday. He said that the successful conduct of the Congress was an indication that the party was set to legitimately take over power from the People's Democratic Party in 2023. Austin Agada was elected as the state APC chairman in the state. And the Independent National Electoral Commission in Oyo State says it recognizes only the People's Democratic Party's state congress conducted at the Lekon Salami Sports Complex in the state. The state resident electoral commissioner, Mutiu Agboke, made this known when he led other leaders of INEC on an advocacy visit to Abere Central Mosque in Ibadan. 2 PDP congresses were held in Oyo State with 2 executives emerging. The one recognized by INEC is the one that Governor Seyi Makinde attended on Saturday. Still in the news, the Independent National Electoral Commission has ruled out cancelling next month's governorship election in Anambra State. A director at the commission, Chima Duraku, has told media executives in Awka that the vote may only be postponed if the law mandates INEC to do so. All the non-sensitive materials for the November 6th election are already at the 21 local government areas of Anambra State. Sensitive materials will be brought into the state a few days to the poll, according to Duraku. 2.5 million voters are registered to cast their ballots, including 77,000 new registrants at the continuous voter registration exercise that ended last month. And the wife of the governor of Kebbi State, Zainab Bagudu, and the wife of the vice president, Dolakpa Oshimbajo, including others, are raising awareness of breast cancer by walking the streets of Abuja. They were joined by celebrities on a 5-kilometer walk as part of an annual event organized by Medicaid Cancer Foundation. Emmanuel Ehijene completes this report.
These are high-level dignitaries and celebrities creating awareness on the dangers of cancer and ways of prevention and treatment. The wife of the governor of Kebbi State, Zainab Bagudu, is the initiator of the program, which she drives through her Medicaid Foundation. Other dignitaries at the event are the wife of Nigeria's Vice President, Dolakpo Oshibajo, medical professionals and celebrities. The 5-kilometer walk began as early as 8 in the morning from TOS Benton in Abuja. It was a long walk with music and security personnel on hand. Dr. Zainab Bagudu says the essence of the walk is to create awareness on the benefit of early detection and early treatment of cancer.
Awareness is a very low-hanging fruit, and the more we do, the more we can change the catastrophic nature of cancer. Because of this poor awareness, the outcome in our country is much poorer than in high-income countries. Pediatric cancer is a cancer that is really relatively curable. 85 to 95% of children in the high-income countries get well when they have cancer. But in our country, the prognosis is within the region of 25 to 30%, depending on where you are. So this inequity needs to be addressed.
The governor was there to give support, the foundation and moral booster to his wife.
In Kebbi, we have an indigent fund that was, again, her pioneering work to mobilize money to support the indigent who are affected with cancer, which has led to, at the national level, adoption of a catastrophic cancer fund, which for the first time in our history, President Muhammadu Buhari and the National Assembly agreed to provide funding where eligible indigent beneficiaries will be assisted.
Dignitaries commend the initiative, advising that the awareness is not just limited to women, but men as well.
What we're doing is raising awareness not just about breast cancer that can occur in women, but also other cancers like prostate. We want all men above 40 and 45 to check their PSA levels. They should include prostate assessment in their routine medical exams. We want people to go to hospital every year, whether on their birthdays, to check if they are well, so that the doctors would be able to use the results that they've seen year in, year out to compare and tell them if there are changes that can be addressed.
Celebrity music icons were also there to entertain guests with popular renditions as the crowd chorus along. The message is clear. Awareness is key, as early detection of cancer can save your life.
And women of all ages have been called upon to be tech-savvy, aligned with the Z generation, and lend their voices to make a difference in society. The First Lady of Lagos and Chairman of Committee of Wives of Lagos State, Kolso Ibijoke Sonwolu, made this call while speaking with journalists shortly after an awareness walk heralding the 21st National Women's Conference. Lagos State Government House correspondent Love Ikuku Oyedokun has more in this report.
Bearing placards with different inscriptions, they walked from the Marwa Garden in Ikeja through CBD Road and terminated at the State House of Assembly. In unison, they chanted and drummed home one message: awake, stop the violence. Highlighting more on the theme of the conference, Ibijoke Sonwolu said all women must wake up to the reality of the 21st century, be well informed and proficient in the use of modern technology.
Awake stands for a call to all women so that they can wake up from their slumber, be a voice to the voiceless, to ensure that the economy moves forward, to not think that they don't have anything to do. They have a role to play, every woman. And so for our women, whether you're a market woman or not, this is a time that we must become tech-savvy. This is the time we must be able to talk up. This is the time we should align with the Z generation. This is the time we need to sorosoke. This is the time that every woman, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, you need to lend your voice and make sure that you are waking another woman out there.
The annual National Women Conference was an initiative of Senator Oluremi Tinubu in 2000, then as the First Lady of Lagos State, where Committee of Wives of Lagos State officials also converged as supporting partners in governance. From Lagos, Love Ikuku Oyedokun, reporting for Plus TV Africa.
Now to stories in other parts of Africa. The presidential election in Cape Verde began on Sunday, with polling stations opening at 7 a.m. local time. According to the National Election Commission, a total of 398,864 voters, including 342,777 registered on the national territory and 56,087 abroad, were invited to go to the 1,294 polling stations throughout the country and abroad. Two candidates stand out, including Carlos Viega and Jose Maria Neves, among the 7 seeking a 5-year term as president of the Cape Verdean Republic. Jose Maria Neves, who served as the prime minister from 2001 to 2016, was the first to present his candidacy, supported by the African Independence Party of Cape Verde. And the Somali National Army says an Al-Shabaab commander has surrendered to it. Mohammed Kulo Ali, who is in charge of the terror group's operations in the southern region, surrendered to the Somali army based in Wajid town, armed with an AK-47 rifle and ammunition. The Somali army is now making it clear that any terrorist willing to surrender in line with the government's amnesty offer is welcome. Al-Shabaab has carried out terror attacks in Somalia for nearly 2 decades. Moving outside Africa now, at least 24 people have been killed in floods in southern India after heavy rains caused rivers to overflow, cutting off towns and villages. 5 children are among the dead. They are
raced to clear debris from a bridge with an excavator. A resident described the extent of the damage.
There are 4 landslides happened there yesterday. The hill behind me, which has brought all the water and other items to the downwards. There are 5 shops here. This is totally washed out.
The Indian Army and Navy was sent to Kottayam and Idukki districts to aid rescue efforts. Annual rainfall supports 2/3 of India's billion-plus population who live in rural areas and rely on farming. However, excessive rainfall sparks not only floods and landslides, but also waterborne diseases. In 2018, Kerala saw some of its worst floods in a century. They killed at least 400 people and displaced 200,000 more.
Still in the news, the son of an ex-media advisor to a former Prime Minister of Somalia, Ali Harbi Ali, has been arrested by British police under anti-terrorism laws following the killing of lawmaker David Ames.
British police have arrested a suspect in the murder of lawmaker David Ames, according to local media and a source close to the investigation. Ali Harbi Ali, the son of a former media advisor to a Somali prime minister, was arrested under anti-terrorism laws following the killing of Amos. A lawmaker in British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Conservative Party, Amos was stabbed repeatedly while meeting constituency voters on Friday in a town east of London. Police said they arrested a 25-year-old British man at the scene on suspicion of murder and believe he acted alone. A British source close to the investigation later named Ali as the detained suspect. Ali's father told the Sunday Times that his son had been arrested in connection with the murder, and in an email to Reuters called the situation unprecedented and horrific. He added, quote, "Due to the ongoing early investigation, I am obliged and commanded not to talk about it." British police searched an address linked to Ali in North London on Sunday. In a statement released via London police, Amos's family said they were absolutely broken, but asked people to, quote, "set aside hatred and work towards togetherness. Whatever one's race, religious, or political beliefs, be tolerant and try to understand." The killing comes 5 years after the murder of Joe Cox, a lawmaker from the opposition Labour Party, and has prompted a review of politicians' security.
And now in business news, Facebook is planning to hire 10,000 people in the European Union to develop a so-called metaverse. A metaverse is an online world where people can game, work, and communicate in a virtual environment, often using VR headsets. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has been a leading voice on the concept. The announcement comes as Facebook deals with the fallout of a damaging scandal and faces increased calls for regulation to curb its influence. And China's economy has hit its slowest pace of growth in a year in the third quarter, hurt by power shortages, supply chain bottlenecks, and major wobbles in the property market, and raising pressure on policymakers to do more to prop up the faltering recovery. The National Bureau of Statistics spokesperson Fu Lingyu told the news conference in Beijing that the economy has the ability and conditions to complete the expected goals and tasks for economic and social development throughout the year. Data released on Monday showed gross domestic product GDP grew 4.9% in July to September from a year earlier, the weakest clip since the third quarter of 2020 and missing forecasts. Despite the drop in growth, the government says it is confident the targets will be met. The world's second largest economy is facing several major challenges, including the China Evergrande Group debt crisis, ongoing supply chain delays, and a critical electricity crunch, which sent factory outputs to its weakest since early 2020, when heavy COVID-19 curbs were in place. And to entertainment news, a cabinet minister says Tanzania has allocated about $39.2 million for the implementation of 23 projects aimed at revamping the tourism sector affected by the coronavirus pandemic. The Minister for Natural Resources and Tourism, Damas Ndumbaro, told the press conference in the commercial capital, Dar es Salaam, that the funds were part of the $567.25 million approved in September by the International Monetary Fund. The IMF approved the funds in emergency financial assistance to Tanzania under the Rapid Credit Facility and Rapid Financing Instrument to support the authorities' efforts in responding to the pandemic by addressing the urgent health, humanitarian, and economic costs. And now in sports news, chances of Rivers United FC qualifying for the group stage of the CAF Champions League dimmed on Sunday as they could only manage a 1-1 draw at home against Al Hilal of Sudan in Port Harcourt. The Sudanese Giants took the lead in the 37th minute through Yassil Mohammed before Rivers United drew level in the 68th minute when an Al Hilal player, Samwal Nuruddin, put the challenge from Victoria Azarenka to produce a gutsy 7-6, 2-6, 7-6 win in the Indian Wells Championships match on Sunday. Azarenka was 2 points from winning the tournament for a third time, and serving when her game began to unravel behind a series of errors. Badusa took advantage and held her nerve in the final tiebreaker, firing a cross-court forehand winner on championship point and then fall into the court in joy. And that's the news brief. For more stories, please follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa. Thanks for watching.
Nigeria has produced and continues to produce great writers who have won great accolades and recognition for their work. When discussing African literature, names like Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, and Buchi Emecheta. But beyond these writers, exist modern writers redefining the fate of literature in Nigeria, Africa, and globally. 1. Chimamanda Adichie.